Domenikos Theotokopoulos, better known as El Greco, stands as a towering figure in Western art. Born in Crete in 1541, his journey led him from Byzantine traditions to Renaissance Italy and finally to Spain. El Greco's art defies easy categorization. He absorbed influences from Mannerism and Spanish Catholicism. His early training in Byzantine icon painting left an indelible mark. The stylized forms and spiritual intensity of Byzantine art resonated throughout his career. His horizons expanded dramatically when he traveled to Venice in 1567. In Venice, he immersed himself in the vibrant colors and dynamic compositions of Titian and Tintoretto. Their influence is seen in his early works, displaying mastery of color and light. Yet his artistic voice remained distinct, with emotional intensity and elongated forms. After his time in Venice, El Greco moved to Rome, where he encountered the artistic innovations of Michelangelo and the Mannerist painters. Mannerism, with its emphasis on elongated figures, dramatic poses, and artificial colors, clearly influenced El Greco. However, he transformed these elements, infusing them with his own mystical spirituality and intense emotionalism. In 1577, El Greco arrived in Toledo, Spain, where he would spend the rest of his life. Toledo, with its rich artistic heritage and deeply religious atmosphere, proved to be the ideal setting for El Greco to fully develop his mature style. He received numerous commissions for altarpieces and religious paintings, and his art became increasingly infused with the mystical intensity of Spanish Catholicism. El Greco's artistic innovations did not always find favor with his patrons. Some criticized his unconventional compositions and elongated figures. However, El Greco found a receptive audience among the intellectual and religious elite of Toledo who appreciated the spiritual depth and emotional power of his art. Painted between 1608 and 1615, the opening of the fifth seal stands as one of El Greco's most powerful and enigmatic masterpieces. This monumental altarpiece, originally part of a larger cycle of paintings for the Hospital de la Caridad in Toledo, depicts a scene from the Book of Revelation. It captures the moment when the fifth seal of God's judgment is broken, unleashing a torrent of divine wrath upon the earth. The painting is a whirlwind of color, light, and movement. El Greco abandons traditional spatial conventions, creating a composition that is both intensely dynamic and deeply spiritual. The figures, elongated and contorted, seem to writhe in a state of ecstatic agony and spiritual transport. Their eyes, wide with awe and terror, gaze heavenward as the divine drama unfolds above them. At the center of the composition, the figure of St. John the Evangelist, clad in a vibrant blue robe, dominates the scene. His arms outstretched, he seems to both recoil from and embrace the apocalyptic vision unfolding before him. One of the most striking features of the opening of the fifth seal is El Greco's use of elongated figures. The figures are stretched vertically, their limbs impossibly long. This elongation reflects Mannerist aesthetics, employing exaggerated proportions for dramatic effect. El Greco's elongation goes beyond style. It has profound spiritual significance. The forms strain upwards, striving to transcend earthly bonds. They embody the soul's mystical yearnings to ascend to the divine. Section 5. The language of color in El Greco's masterpiece. Color plays a crucial role in the opening of the fifth seal, heightening the emotional intensity of the scene. El Greco's palette is both vibrant and otherworldly. He employs a daring juxtaposition of acidic yellows, electric blues, and fiery reds, creating a sense of supernatural luminosity. The colors seem to pulsate with an inner light, illuminating the figures and casting eerie shadows that further enhance the dramatic impact of the scene. The use of color is not merely decorative in El Greco's work. It is deeply symbolic, imbued with spiritual and emotional resonance. The vibrant blues, often associated with the Virgin Mary in Catholic art, take on a mystical quality in El Greco's hands. They evoke the divine presence, the transcendent realm that lies beyond the material world. The fiery reds and oranges suggest the flames of divine judgment, the consuming power of God's wrath. Yet even in these moments of divine retribution, El Greco offers a glimmer of hope. The luminous yellows and golds that often surround the figures hint at the promise of salvation, the possibility of redemption, even in the face of divine judgment. Section 6. Prefiguring Expressionism, a bridge across centuries. Centuries before the term Expressionism was coined, El Greco's art anticipated many of the key characteristics of this influential 20th century movement. His emphasis on subjective emotion, his distortion of form and color to express inner experience, and his use of bold, expressive brushwork all find echoes in the works of artists like Edvard Munch, Ernst Ludwig Kirchner, and Oskar Kokoshka. While El Greco was deeply rooted in the religious and artistic traditions of his time, his innovative approach to painting paved the way for later artists to explore new modes of expression. He demonstrated that painting could be more than a mere representation of the external world. It could also be a powerful vehicle for conveying the inner life, the subjective emotions and spiritual experiences of the artist. Section 7. Echoes of El Greco, Expressionism's debt to the past. The influence of El Greco on Expressionism is perhaps most evident in the movement's shared emphasis on emotional intensity. Both El Greco and the Expressionists rejected the detached objectivity that had characterized much of Western art. Instead, they sought to convey the raw, unfiltered emotions of the human experience: joy, sorrow, anxiety, ecstasy, and despair. Like El Greco, the Expressionists were not afraid to distort reality in order to achieve their artistic aims. They elongated figures, twisted perspectives, and employed jarring colors to create a sense of unease, alienation, and psychological depth. The world, as depicted in their art, is not a fixed, stable reality, but rather a fluid, subjective realm shaped by the emotions and perceptions of the individual. Expressionist artists, drawing inspiration from El Greco's example, explored themes of alienation, anxiety, and the search for spiritual meaning in a rapidly changing world. Their paintings often featured isolated figures, lost in contemplation or overwhelmed by the chaos of modern life. Section 8. The Scream and the Opening of the Fifth Seal, a Shared Intensity. A compelling example of the link between El Greco and Expressionism can be seen in the visual and emotional parallels between Edvard Munch's iconic painting The Scream and El Greco's The Opening of the Fifth Seal. Both works depict figures in a state of extreme emotional distress, their features distorted by psychic turmoil. Munch's swirling blood-red sky and the contorted figure with hands clasped to its head echo the visual language of El Greco. The shared intensity, the palpable sense of existential angst, speaks across centuries, connecting two artistic sensibilities attuned to the darker undercurrents of human experience. The similarities between these two works are not coincidental. Expressionist artists were rediscovering and celebrating the art of El Greco, recognizing in his work a kindred spirit, a precursor to their own exploration of subjective experience and emotional intensity. Section 9. El Greco's Enduring Legacy, a Legacy of Emotional Power. El Greco's influence extends beyond Expressionism. His innovative use of color and daring compositions convey profound spiritual experiences. Once seen as eccentric, his vision is now a testament to individual expression. From the symbolists to the abstract expressionists, El Greco's legacy resonates. His willingness to break conventions inspires artists to challenge boundaries. El Greco's art bridges tradition and individual expression. His unique vision captivates and inspires. Section 10. Conclusion: the visionary bridge between Mannerism and modernity. El Greco, the visionary from Crete, stands as a pivotal figure in the history of Western art. His unique style, a fusion of Byzantine tradition, Italian Mannerism, and Spanish mysticism, paved the way for the development of Expressionism and continues to influence artists to this day. In The Opening of the Fifth Seal and other masterpieces, El Greco demonstrated the power of art to transcend the limitations of realism and delve into the depths of human emotion and spiritual experience. His elongated figures, vibrant colours and expressive brushstrokes, far from being mere stylistic quirks, were tools with which he conveyed the inner turmoil, spiritual aspirations and profound humanity of his subjects. El Greco's art, a bridge between the Renaissance and the modern world, reminds us that the most enduring art is that which speaks to the deepest yearnings of the human spirit.